Well, I think it looks like that Donald Trump is trying to encircle Prime Minister Netanyahu for a very obvious reason. A man who has a history of breaching and violating the previous ceasefire agreements, a man who has a history of basically killing Palestinians, conducting their genocide. I think in that broader context, it looks like that Donald Trump is pursuing a twofold policy. First part of the policy is to directly speak to the Israeli people, talk to the families of the captives, and address its parliament, which he has probably has already addressed, and then directly communicate with the Israeli people and try to bypass Netanyahu. I think in a very systematic manner, it looks like that Donald Trump is perhaps seizing the political career of Netanyahu to exist. Reason being is that Netanyahu is now, his office has said that he is not going to be there to the Egypt International Summit. Why wouldn't he be there? Reason is that there will be huge embarrassment. There will be leaders from Muslim countries like President Tayyip Erdogan, who had to launch a campaign to save Gaza, and he has been criticizing Netanyahu. He was coming down very hard on him, and he will have to face him. That will be a moment of embarrassment for him. There will be the Prime Minister of Spain, the man who his country was one of the few countries in Europe during last couple of months, they stood for Palestine. They recognized the Palestinian state, and I think part of the trade has already been suspended with Israel. And then in a similar fashion, I think the French president would be there, who lately have started criticizing Israel. Yes, UK's prime minister is there, but again, has been playing on the both sides of the divide, despite the fact that the UK has reluctantly recognized the state of Palestine. So in that context, I think there is also a bigger catch, and that catch is that Netanyahu will have to sign that peace accord along with all other more than 20 leaders, international leaders, both from the region, both from the Europe. And he doesn't want to make that kind of a commitment, which is going to be filmed, which is going to maybe turn out to be some kind of another historical document. It may or may not be implemented. That's altogether a different debate. In that broader context, I think he is partly reluctant. And then I think in the Israeli parliament, Donald Trump also made a fun of Netanyahu when he said that Netanyahu made a very long speech, but he doesn't have a time to go to the Egypt. I mean, Netanyahu is coming up with a very nonsensical justification that there is a Jewish holiday and he has to stay in Israel. Again, this actually gives a lingering sense of suspicion that Netanyahu is still trying to find some way out where he may not, I think probably this is certainly, he may not actually implement some parts of Gaza peace deal. His entire focus is to somehow or the other keep its troops inside Gaza. Still, 53% of Gaza is under the occupation of Israel. They have just withdrawn from parts of Gaza. And then another problem is that these troops are going to stay there. My understanding is under a very nonsensical justification that as long as Hamas is not demilitarized, as long as its infrastructure, Hamas' military infrastructure is not destroyed by the Muslim countries whose troops are going to be there under this plan, the Israeli military would stay there. And then he has also planned that the 25-kilometer buffer zone he has declared, which is a 140 square kilometer, huge territory alongside the border with Israel. He also wants to retain it. I think for a variety of reasons, I think there is a sense of suspicion, but it looks like that there would not be any immediate resumption of a genocide. And if there is a possibility exists in foreseeable future that Israeli military would be conducting I would call it a terrorist attacks inside Gaza under one pretext or the other. But it looks like that there is a sense of relief for the Palestinians. They have decided to have a makeshift arrangements to set up tents on the rubbles, but they are not going to leave Gaza. That is something positive. But in a broader context, I think the kind of the situation which is developing across the region, that does suggest that there is going to be now new politics, new diplomacy. Essentially, Donald Trump wants to reshape Middle East, and his vision looks like that there may be some kind of arrangement. It may be a loose arrangement. It may be a declaration on the part of Israel that there would be a two-state solution, but then the Palestinian state would have internal autonomy so far as defense and the military is concerned. I think that is where Israel would be reluctant to allow that to happen. Now, bigger question is, will Arab leaders keep on selling their souls like in the past, or this time they would stand up? I have a very strong doubts. Reason is that this Washington Post report is a very telling. It's a very revealing, and that says that for last 4 or 5 years, all these Arab countries, including Saudi Arabia, including Egypt, including Bahrain, Qatar, they all have been having a joint military exercise with the apartheid Israel. And part of the military exercises has also been on how to demolish underground tunnels, on how to dismantle these tunnels. That is an indicator that perhaps Israel had a long plan to use Muslim countries' armies to dismantle these tunnels and pick up a fight with the Hamas. Remember, Hamas is very much effective, still effective force inside Gaza. And now even Donald Trump has admitted that the Hamas is rearming itself. It is reorganizing itself. It has its presence among the ranks and files of the police. Its health ministry still has been quoting the statistics. So again, in that broader context, I think we have to keep an eye on how things unfold. But my understanding is that the Turkish military, Pakistan's military, would not be part of any campaign where Hamas is disarmed or where these tunnels are dismantled. This dirty job may be done by the other Arab armies. I don't think the non-Arab countries would be getting themselves involved in it.
Well, yes, but also we are undoubtedly talking about the meeting in Egypt as well. So I do want to learn your opinions about it. What would you say about the meeting that is to unfold in Egypt with Donald Trump arriving, but he's also late, and it's probably going to be a problem for the presidents, but it's probably no one is going to leave until President Donald Trump is there. So what would you say about this meeting in general?
Well, I think we have discussed part of his encirclement and of Netanyahu. That is domestic, which is addressing the parliament, directly talking to the Israeli population, because now in Israel, the perception is that the captives have been released because of the initiative of the Donald Trump. But that is a domestic scene. But there is also another scene, the international pressure, the regional pressure, the informal allies of Netanyahu. I'm talking about the Arab North. They will be there, and I think that is why he has opted not to go there. This agreement may be an agreement among all these leaders, maybe 20 leaders. They will be having an agreement. But again, since the absence of Netanyahu would be a problematic area, will somebody else would go there to the Egypt to represent Israel? This is not yet clear. But that is again a very, very problematic area. We have to see that even then, I think this is going to be a kind of a pressure on Netanyahu that in case he resumes genocide of Gaza, then all these countries, let's exclude the Arab and Muslim countries. The reason being is that in a broader scheme of things, for Israel, Muslim leaders Arab leaders don't matter much. But certainly, since there would be European leaders, the UK's Prime Minister would be there, French President would be there, and the Spanish Prime Minister would be there, and there are also other leaders. I think that would serve a kind of a pressure tactics. Donald Trump is essentially getting a support to his so-called peace plan from the European countries that will work as a pressure tactics. But we have to also see the broader picture, something which Donald Trump, during his address to the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, tried to play it down, that the people in the world would have started loving again Israel. This is a complete nonsensical political rhetoric on the part of Donald Trump. People all over the world, it's not just Muslim countries, all over the world, in the West, they now love to hate Netanyahu and apartheid Israel because they have seen the real face of Zionism in the world. Their tentacles have been exposed in Europe. Their tentacles have been exposed in Washington. Donald Trump has been under tremendous pressure from MAGA, which is an organization of his supporters, Make America Again, Make America Great Again. That I think they've been openly talking that U.S. government stands compromised when it comes to Israel. They've been openly talking that Israel has taken over all kind of foreign policy making. And I think that pressure is still there. People are now looking at in what manner there is a genuine move for the two-state solution. And that is where, which is something absent. Netanyahu has said it time and again, even after this peace deal, that there would not be any two-state solution to this crisis. This is indeed a problematic area because a vague reference of a self-determination right of the Palestinians in this so-called peace agreement, that does not make sense for many people because it could be interpreted in either way. Because what does it mean by the self-determination? Does it mean an independent state? But that is a possibility which Netanyahu has already ruled out. So does it mean that there will be one state where Palestinians would be given the equal rights and they will have the equal voting rights? Then this also looks like not possible because the fear in Tel Aviv is that somehow or the other the Palestinian population will grow up and they would outnumber the Jewish population and they would be the ruling in Israel. So because of these apprehensions, Israel simply wants to keep Palestine in chaos, keep unrest, and use, if not resumption of a genocide, but also use some kind of military operations, both inside Gaza and more particularly in the occupied West Bank. My fear lingers on. We are talking about Gaza, but I think at the same time, we have to see a very glaring picture, a very terrible picture emerging from West Bank, where already 200,000 housing units, either they have been built or some of them are still remaining or they are going to be built. That project is very much active. There is a big military infrastructure that's being rebuilt over there. And there is a vast agricultural land of the Palestinians which has been taken over. There is a agricultural infrastructure of the Palestinians which has been destroyed. There is a city in Jenin city in occupied West Bank. From there, 40 to 50,000 people have been expelled. There has already been military operation inside occupied West Bank, and in a similar fashion, there are more and more settlements also in the East Jerusalem and across the West Bank. Nobody is talking about it. And Donald Trump's assurance that I would not allow Netanyahu to have sovereign rights over Gaza, or would not allow Netanyahu to annex West Bank. But practically, I think they have already annexed. And then Netanyahu and his fascist regime officials, they are already saying that we would seize the possibility of a two-state solution by bringing a de facto change on the ground. This is a bigger problem, and that is not being addressed. And my understanding is that the Arab monarchs who have been a partners in this genocide campaign, expecting them that they will be very forceful, they will be very meaningful in prevailing upon Donald Trump to address all these concerns. I don't think that is going to happen. All hopes are attached with the President Tayyip Erdogan. I believe that he is going to speak to Donald Trump, and he will be addressing the similar nature of the issues. My understanding is that his focus is likely to be on the two-state solution. But let's see how things unfold to serve as a bigger diplomatic pressure on Netanyahu to stay loyal to this peace deal.
Well, this is what we expect and hope from this international conference, actually, to help Gazans to rebuild themselves from the states that they have been in. So what would you say? In our screens live, we are actually seeing Han Yunis right now and Gaza in general, that so many people are coming back home, but their homes are in the rubble, actually. They're still trying to build up something new, and we are seeing in the left side of our screens, we are seeing live the crowd, we are seeing people greeting each other, we are seeing the rubble, and despite that rubble, we are seeing smiles on the faces of the Palestinians and Gazans, because it's their home. It's their home regardless of everything. So what would you say about their arrival, and do you think that the reconstruction process is going to start, and who do you think is going to initiate it?
I think to begin with, addressing your first part of the question about the spirit, the resilience, the resistance, and the jubilant Palestinian being sitting on the rubbles of Gaza, and they are determined, they are not going to leave Gaza. This is something extraordinary. That spirit is the most dangerous sign, most dangerous political sign for apartheid Israel. That despite the fact that Israel has killed hundreds of thousands of people, presumably, because there are terrible reports coming which suggest that where have gone those people? It's not just 67,000 people. It's not just more than 160 to 70,000 people being injured. It goes much beyond it. Let's go by the facts as on the ground. Even that means that 11% population of Gaza has been either eliminated or it is a disabled mind or injured. Nonetheless, look at the spirit of Palestinians. Look at how they are reacting, despite the fact that they're not one generation, not two generation, three generation, not in one case. I think there are thousands of cases which have now emerged in the media, suggesting that probably there are 5,000 families in occupied Gaza who have just one surviving member of their family. Look at the scale of the tragedy. It is an industrial scale of the tragedy, unimaginable, unheard of in the modern age. Look at what does it mean when we compare it, make some very brief calculation. What does it mean if the US 11% population is either eliminated or become disabled? What it means, tens of millions of people. And that is not something which is being realized. So I think the spirit of the Palestinian is something which is an indicator that if a two-state solution is not there, based on justice, not based on injustice which has already been there, then there would be once again another attack like on October 7, 2023, because Palestinian would always resist. Forget about the nomenclature. Forget about it is a Hamas. Forget about it is Islamic Jihad. Forget about it's a Fatah or this Palestinian Authority or any other resistant group. They would emerge and re-emerge, but they would not simply give in to the Israel's genocide. This is something extraordinary situation. You may recall when there was a 11 days war between Iran and apartheid Israel. Israel had to wrap it up because the people were not willing to put up with the onslaught of Iran, those missiles attacks. That is why Donald Trump had to intervene. They had to go for an immediate ceasefire because people inside apartheid Israel are not used to this. They don't have that resilience. They don't have that resistance, something which people in the occupied Palestinian territories have. That is something extraordinary. That is something which is missing in the apartheid state. They have been operating with the use of force, using genocide as a weapon, using famine as a weapon. Nonetheless, those Palestinians have survived in Gaza. Look at the scale of the famine. Only artificial built up famine in the modern history. At least 500 people died in Gaza because they didn't have the sufficient food. And look at their resilience, that they are there. They are saying that we will make makeshift arrangements. We will set up tents, but we would not leave Gaza. You may recall that one of the clauses of this so-called peace deal is they're talking about that the Palestinian would not be forced to leave Gaza, or they would be allowed to come back. But that means yes, there may not be use of force by the Israel anymore. But the bigger question is, will those conditions which exist in Gaza right now, in terms of no water, no sewage, no housing infrastructure, because 93% housing infrastructure has been completely destroyed. It's simply a city of rubble now. Nonetheless, I think this spirit is the most dangerous sign for the Israel. Abraham Accord would not survive. It did not survive previously because it was based on injustice. And that injustice was that all these Arab countries were recognizing Israel without two-state solution. And now I think in a similar way, Donald Trump is pursuing this similar policy. That is going to backfire. Hamas is on the record to have said that one of the leading reasons they decided to conduct military operation against apartheid state was Abraham Accord, because Israel was trying to make Palestinian cause irrelevant. That is the reason I think they conducted this operation. Do you think if there is a similar situation, this would not happen again? This would happen again. Palestinians, they are not afraid of anybody else.
Their resistance, as you have mentioned, and we are seeing them live on our screens right now, just in crowds and going back home. So we were talking about the statements of Donald Trump also. So I don't know if you had a chance to listen to him in the Knesset. What would you say about his statements, his approach to Benjamin Netanyahu, his statements that he has finished the war? What would you say? Do you think that, were you expecting him to speak like that?
Well, I have listened part of his speech, which was an indicator that he was putting a lot of pressure on Netanyahu, and then making fun of him also in a light manner. And then I think, and then he said that Netanyahu is a very tough guy, which means in terms of negotiations. But I think this was a clear message. Donald Trump said that now Middle East is going to be reshaped, and there is a forward move now, and that forward move is based on some kind of a solution. And he was, whatever I have heard so far, that he was little vague. What is the roadmap for the two-state solution? He did not speak about it, because at the time when Netanyahu is publicly ruling out the possibility of a two-state solution, I think he has to be awake. But certainly he has some kind of a map of a resolution. And that map, my understanding, includes essentially eliminating Hamas altogether from Gaza in terms of its manpower, in terms of its clout, something unlikely to happen. And then not to pursue the international consensus, which is that before 1967's war, whatever the borders were there, that there be a Palestinian state. I think the fact that USA has been vetoing all kind of resolutions which calls about any two-state solution right now and during last 2 years. That is an indicator that USA essentially is advocating a kind of a solution whereby Palestinian compromise gave in lot of territory to Israel, part of even West Bank, and on East Jerusalem. I think their eyes are on the East Jerusalem because there is a fascist regime, fascist coalition partners who have been eyeing on demolishing the third holiest site of Islam in East Jerusalem. And I think my understanding is that probably Israel would not like Palestinians to have that. I think there could be a very smart solution if somebody is willing to do that, and that is a matter of common sense, that if they have a problem with the Palestinian resistance factions, let Gaza be annexed with Egypt. Let West Bank and East Jerusalem be annexed with the Jordan. The problem is over. But they don't want this problem to be over. Netanyahu has been saying that since Palestinians have already a state in Jordan, because according to Netanyahu's claim that most of the people in Jordan, they are the Palestinians, they have a state, they don't need any another state. So I think it looks like what we are not seeing, apparently an era of diplomacy is going to start, but there is if you look at behind the scene, the battle lines have already been drawn. When there is going to be resumption of another war, we cannot say at this particular point of time, but the Palestinian resistant group would not compromise their cause, no matter. It doesn't matter even if these are monarchs, if they don't support it, because it is a now well-known fact that they are a part of the problem. They are not part of the solution. Some of the genuine voices for the Palestinian cause are coming from Iran and the Turkey. I think these are the two voices which are genuine. People in the Muslim countries can trust upon. But so far as the Arab monarchs are concerned, as Washington Post latest report indicates, they are the biggest part of the problem. I can elaborate each country how they have collaborated with Israel, but that I think we don't have the time to get into that.
So it's an important statement that it is an important times, and we have so much to talk about and cover up. But Javed, I will make sure to come back to you in the upcoming days and hours to talk to you more about it. Right now, I want to thank you for joining us here on A News and sparing your time answering my questions.
The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geostrategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geostrategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.